I have to park this here for a second.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm going to take these off. I'm not using them anyway, right? Okay, I'm good. I want the clicker.
There you go.
And wow. I love San Francisco, one of the great American cities, and it's great to be here. It's just a treat to travel west and to be here this morning. I've learned a lot. I didn't expect to learn a lot. I expected to be talking, but instead I've been listening. And the two presentations this morning have been terrific, so thanks a lot for that. I want to start with a story. In the 1950s, a great professor at Caltech, Elting Morrison, delivered a series of lectures. It's called, and they were captured in a book, which you can still buy today, called Men, Machines in Modern Time. The first lecture was called Gunfire at Sea. It's a story of, a very difficult story of the adoption of new technology by the United States Navy many, many years ago to adjust to the waving role of boats as guns fired and aimed. He started his lecture with a small story himself. It was a story from the very onset of World War II. At the onset of World War II, the British Army was back on its heels. It was outfielded, it was outgunned, and it was pressing into service every machine and every person it could get his hands on. Among the machines pressed into service were venerable old guns of the Boer War era. That was 40 years past their prime. They'd done great service over the Transvaal, being pulled by horses. British engineers and all their ingenuity now adapted them to trucks, and they were able in the mobile defense of the French coastline. But something was amiss. They weren't firing quite as fast as modern systems. Perplexed the British. They called in a time motion expert. Time motion experts were prominent in the day. And he studied the five-man firing crew. And he was sure that there was something going on, but he really couldn't figure out quite what it was. He brought in a camera, took pictures, time motion, like Edward Muybridge. I've never known how to pronounce his name. And the time motion photographs were revealing. It might have been a moment for this fellow like out of Blow Up or out of Blowout, where all of a sudden something is revealed in a photograph unseen in real life. And what he saw was that moments before firing, two of the five-man crew stood at rigid attention, their hands by their side and their chins down. And you notice that it certainly slowed the pace of firing, and it certainly seemed to be accepted as part of a routine, a habit. He was perplexed. He called in a colonel of the artillery. There's always a colonel of the artillery around. You can call in for these sorts of things. He probably has a large handlebar mustache. And he studied the photograph. He too was perplexed. He said, "No, wait a second. Give that back to me." He said, "Aha, I have it. They are holding the horses. They are holding the horses." The force of habit, as we innovate, is overpowering many days. Here was a team that still enacted the old routines of the past war, even though the machines and the technology made it possible to do something very different. And for Morrison, this was the beginning of an exploration for how machines can change our lives, but what the power of the human spirit, for better and for worse, can be as we, as innovators, come on the scene with new possibilities and new inventions and new ways of doing old business. I'm here today to talk with you a little bit about a new way of doing old business for the New York Police Department. It's the work that we're doing with IdeaScale. We have a number of platforms under management now, IdeaScale, Facebook, Twitter, the web, Instagram, YouTube. Hootsuite's important to us. And it's important to us, Hootsuite, because we are, and Twitter, because we're operating what we call a command-level social initiative. This is the Twitter page for the 25th precinct. deputy inspector who's the commanding officer, and the cops of the precinct. When we came on in 2014, I started with Commissioner Bratton. Commissioner Bratton was the first to open a Twitter account, and I opened it for him. Sometimes you need to do these things for the boss. You can see this stunningly good name of @CommisBratton. I didn't want to call him Commish. It's too many television. So @CommisBratton. This screen cap is a little old. He's got well over 25,000 followers now. But then we brought every command in the New York Police Department onto Twitter. And every command means every borough, every commanding officer in the New York Police Department, and now over 100. And each of them with their own Twitter page and their own direct voice to communities. We also brought every RMP, Radio Motor Patrol, otherwise known as a cruiser, on. And you can see here the Twitter marking on the back of this police cruiser. Every police cruiser in New York has its Twitter handle, its Twitter address. In fact, if you notice, there's nowhere in the back of the RMP that identifies the precinct of ownership of this vehicle. It's well marked on the sides, but if you're sitting in traffic and you're behind it, the only identifying marking for the precinct is right here with that little bird. I was congratulated that we were the first to actually permit corporate logo to appear on a New York Police Department cruiser. I thought, we stick that at the end of all our email address, all of our email letters. We use it. It tells New York that we are in this game, the game, and it's an important development. We built training. What is this Twitter thing anyway? We turned to the police academy when we got there and asked them to set up a Twitter training program, but they were a little perplexed. They weren't quite sure what Twitter was. We thought, therefore, maybe we should build our own training program, which we did, and we run every commanding officer through it, and we've learned a lot about how to train and what to train. But it's more than just fun or games. The top here is a tweet from Deputy Inspector Tom Conforti, the 109th Precinct. That's out in the Forest Hills area in Queens. This was a water main break, or an overturned auto, and Tom was, as the police department will be, one of the first on the scenes. He was first on the scene for an F-train derailment earlier in the spring. And when an F-train derails, it's the only way for New Yorkers to get from Queens into Manhattan. It derailed at rush hour. Tom was the first one there. He tweeted out, stay away from the area. Here are your alternative routes in. Please follow. And it was an excellent use of Twitter and exactly what we were hoping for. Hyper-local, would never be picked up by a citywide notification. Too small, too far out. Intensely important to the people right there, right then. And Tom carried through for the next 24 hours with a continuous series of advisories. At the same time, we get we have folks who are tweeting in complaints, and please do something about them. And we'll talk about that in a second. So where are we today? We've got 100 plus NYPD commands on Twitter. We do tactical crime fighting, by which I mean we use social media to understand the context in which crime occurs. If there are shootings, we take a look at what happened before the shooting. We take a look at what happened after the shooting. Fortunately, because of social media, for some people in our community, no crime is worth committing if you can't brag about it on social media. These turn out to be the 15-year-olds, and we're right there with them, and we're happy. We're happy that they share. 95% of our platforms are owned and operated by the chief of department. That's a uniformed service, and this is a very different arrangement than in most police departments, where most police departments, it's the Office of Public Affairs that is using that is using Twitter or social media to push out notifications or to push out information. But the principal users here are the uniformed members of the service, and they are responsible for their own Twitter accounts. They generate some engagement there, but on social media, we find we have no, and this is important for our purposes this morning, we have no way to generate or track work on specific issues. And for us, that's the best way to build trust. As anyone reading newspapers over the past couple of years know, trust has been broken in New York with significant members of our city. Trust is essential. It's essential, first of all, because we need to keep cops safe, but it's essential because we need people to trust us and report crime so that we can address that. We need people to trust the New York Police Department so that they will then turn around and testify in trials when an arrest is made and a prosecution is brought. And we need trust so that people will tell us things that are going on in the street that help us understand and make sense of events that we've seen but can't get insight to. So the lessons learned so far are that social breaks down the barriers between cops and citizens. It re-empowers commanders and re-engages citizens by giving commanders this power, which had been held close within headquarters. It's now dispersed to every commander. It gives new insight to crime and disorder, but it takes more than one platform to really make a difference. And concentrating fire with multiple commands in the game can yield powerful results. And we find missings, we find wanteds fast, or we move traffic away from conflict zones. This is all part of policing in a big city today. The missing stuff is really cool, and we've been able to innovate what we call a broadcast Twitter account, where our missing persons organization within the Office of the Chief of Detectives is a 200-person organization. It's one of the premier missing person organization in the world. They respond not only to missing kids, but when there are building collapses and there are 30 people trapped, they're the ones who are going in to try to figure out who is there. We established a Twitter account for them so that they could broadcast generally across New York missing, who we're looking for, the kids that we're looking for, the adults, those who have stumbled and fallen in life. We're looking for them. Here's a photograph. And here are the precincts where we think that person is going to be found, and we name them in those precincts' Twitter handles. Those precinct commands then pick up that notification, and they tweet it out as well. And the results have been terrific. I'll give you a quick example. You won't find this terrific, but it is terrific. And if you think about it, you might share my view. A young woman went missing at the age of 16 and just disappeared. Detective Chris Zimmerman, who works the missing person account, thought he'd give it a try. Once we brought the account up, she'd be 18 by now. And he tweeted out, we're looking for, named the person with the photograph. And the next day, her parents got a call. It was her. She said, I hear you're looking for me on social media. Cut it out. I'm not coming home. Right? Well, guess what? Parents have closure. They now know their child is alive. It's not the perfect ending, but it's what, as a parent, any parent would settle to know that their child was alive, even if something was wrong and they couldn't connect today. 5 years from today, 10 years from today, maybe they'll come back. That to us is a win, and that's one of the powerful tools that's available to us in social media. But I want to talk about IdeaScale for a minute because there's more power here yet, and power is what we're looking for. It's the power to help people who can't help themselves and who need the help of the New York Police Department. As you know, it's a web-based platform. For us, we ask the question, what do you want NYPD to do next on quality of life issues in your neighborhood? And we'll talk about that in a minute. It's a hyper-local, so the platform is participation by zip code. Only if you reside in a zip code can you be admitted to the precinct IdeaScale page for that zip code. We're going to be expanding that to include people who work in the zip code. But at the moment, it's participation by zip code. That's different for us from Twitter. right? Twitter the People's Liberation Army in China is an active member of our Twitter pages, I'm sure, and as anyone would suggest, NYPD is globally known, and so it has global following, and people comment globally on NYPD activity. But IdeaScale is participation by zip code. We like that. Plus, it's moderated. We like that. And we like that it votes up and down nominations for things that we ought to pay attention to. So web-based, command-specific community forum, informing police about what's going on. It creates a community-sourced agenda for action on quality of life issues. You know, in policing, our agenda is set by the 911 call system. When 911 was introduced 40 years ago, spend 10 cents, mobilize the entire New York Police Department. It democratized policing. It used to be you had to call your ward boss and persuade them to get the police to do something about a problem. 911 changed it all. But there's a vast range of problems that New Yorkers care about, quality of life problems that are not 911 matters. They're not emergency matters. Nonetheless, they bother people. They frame views and ideas about life in the city, and they're important to pay attention to. So this IdeaScale gives us a community-sourced agenda for action on these issues. Participants are limited to the zip codes. Submissions are made anonymously, and this is very important. Commanders can screen out issues that are not police actionable. What does that mean? It means we don't do potholes. Someone complains about potholes, we will say, that's, call 311, or we'll call 311 and make that report. And other members can vote them up or down. What's really important about IdeaScale is that police can interact and show results. So there's real two-way communication. And I'll get to that in a moment. How are we using it? It began as a pilot in the 109th Precinct out in Queens. We now have almost 1,700 users who have submitted over 75 quality of life issues that they want addressed. Everything from noise to vagrants to graffiti to some drug dealing, traffic conditions, parking, issues that are aggravating in the course of city life. And we married IdeaScale to a new policing program that we instituted called the Neighborhood Coordination Officer. Neighborhood Coordination Officers have a Google-like freedom. 20% of their time, they're off the 911 call log, and it is intended that they will address community problems. IdeaScale helps develops that agenda for what these police officers should be doing during that time. We developed the training program, and we've also now introduced an innovation working with IdeaScale, which is a workload tracking feature, so that when someone nominates an issue, it goes up on a workload tracking log, and commanders can track progress against that. When did it come in? How long has it been there? Who's got it? And close out the job. And it's very, very important. That's how policing organizes its work. And so IdeaScale easily fits into the way that we organize our work, and that's very important. When we close out a job, the idea is then to take a victory lap. You said you wanted us to do this. We did do this, and here's a photograph of us doing it. So, Tom Conforti, 109th Precinct. Idea number 13, speeding on or near 20th Avenue in the 109th Precinct, 36 votes. Here's a picture. This is a guy with a speed gun. You can't see it here, but that's what's going on. Tom is a great lead on this kind of innovation. Here's the 100th Precinct. This is their IdeaScale page. Vagrants on Beach 116th Street. They make it hard for anyone to shop or feel safe. Plenty of times I walk out of Capital One Bank, and at 1 p.m. until the sun goes down, they eat and hang around the drive-through between the bank and Carvel. Next time it can be a thief or a rapist. Policing is, in a democratic society, has lots of people who have lots of issues that they want the police department to address. This drew 54 votes. So this is a problem here. And what we will do is we will look at statements like this, and we will assess, can we do something about it? should we reply? Is there a matter of law that is constraining us? Or if we can take action, what action will we take? We finally had to close this out because it just kept going on and on. But what we've discovered is that we will, if the problem returns, people will put it back up again, and that's what we count on. So this is the automated workload tracking printout. You can see date, time. That we have a column day since the post, idea type, idea title, loud late parties on 157th Street. Here's the detail. Detail is really important for policing. We need to know where, when, and how. So on Saturdays, a neighbor hosts parties with music at disco noise level, blasting out of open windows until 4 a.m. Address is 614 West 157th Street, ground floor, the right side of the entrance. If you can't do something about this, you should pack it up and go home, because here is the information that we're looking for in order to address it. We referred this out, which means that this is part of our development is to figure out how to characterize these different stages where we take action. I'll give you an example here. In this instance, the respondent said, this condition is more suited for 311 if it's an isolated incident. We are learning how not to respond as well. When we see that, we want to come back to the command and say, this is something you should be jumping all over. This is all set. It's all teed up for you. 311 is not for this. 311 is not for a persistent problem that's been brought to our attention. 311 is for driveway blockage or pothole. Take your pick. This is ours. And so we are learning to capture the right stuff and to move on and get it done. So key metrics that we're going to follow. Getting metrics figured out for stuff like this is really, really important. There's a hard power way to do it, which is to say, you'll have 5 issues here and you'll deal with 4 within 30 days or within 30 minutes. Take your pick. I mean, you can frame it in a variety of ways. What we want to do is we want to use a different approach, which is to compare the performance of individual commands against the average of all commands. So we can say, hey, hi, you're in the top quartile. Hats off to you, great job. Or, hey, hi, you're in the bottom quartile. Happy there, or we want some help? It's that conversation that we're beginning to have now with commands. We just started this in July. Another one, so number of participants is really, really important. In space, no one can hear you if you scream. No one can hear you on IdeaScale if you don't have participants. That means marketing is very, very important to the top institutions, civic, to the top leaders of a neighborhood to remarket our IdeaScale through city councilors and others. Time to post respond is also very important. We can't have people posting up ideas and 15 days later we show up, and we need to have a very fast response. That's what people expect, and that's what we're going to be moving to hold people to. But again, it'll be against the mean. Hi, you're in the top quartile of response times. No, you're not. You're in the bottom quartile of response times. What can we do to lift the bottom up? And then customer satisfaction, very, very important by job, right? And here's what we're working on with IdeaScale. You see it right out there. It's that little stand, that happy or not. It was a surprise to me to see it here. I was thrilled because Josh Folk and Matt Paulson and I have been in dialogue about how to build a digital version of Happy or Not onto each issue, so that at the conclusion of it, a citizen will send out an email to the citizen and say, please come back and tell us on a four-point scale of happy or not how we did. It will be the first time that we're able to share that kind of response for citizens in response to the work that a police department did for them. Now you can imagine there are plenty of services that people will receive where they're not entirely happy about the police. They weren't happy about the ticket. They were not happy about being handcuffed. They were not happy about being brought to prison. We understand that. This is quality of life. This is quality of life. Did we respond quickly? Did we address your concern, and has it stayed away? that to us is the big deal. So results to date, we've got 5 commands on IdeaScale. These 2 are in northern Manhattan. These 3 are in southern Queens. We've got reasonably high participation, active communities, very active communities in several. We've got a lot of quality of life issues identified and resolved. We have good linkage to Twitter and to other platforms. Our costs are, the on-ramp to IdeaScale is wonderfully low. It makes all possible. It's not free like Twitter, but it's it's low enough that we can be happy campers. So what's next? We're going to expand to additional commands with the Neighborhood Coordination Officer program. IdeaScale will follow, so there'll be 4 more commands on over in the Bronx, I believe, and also in Queens by the end of this year. We're going to explore Meetup as another way to market IdeaScale. Meetup, as you may know, brings people together face to face. We think that we can use Meetup to bring people together on hyper-local issues face to face, and then apply IdeaScale into the group. We're hopeful of finding ways to do this. We think this will amplify our effect, and it'll be a nice suite of portfolio tools between Twitter and IdeaScale and Meetup that will resonate well. We're going to continue to upgrade workload tracking reports to industrial grade. We need it. It's got to be able to sustain itself. We're going to program the customer sat, and we're going to finalize our metrics and add to our overall performance kit. It's very important that performance be managed and monitored. That's how you get results in policing. This has to go into the performance management stream for what cops are accountable for. We're also going to build in an additional management structure. All of our precincts report to a bureau command. So far, they've been staying out of the action. We're going to bring the bureau commands in so that they begin to take ownership of the different precincts. And I think that's it. So thank you for your time today. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. So, questions? Happy to attempt to answer. Yes, sir.
I'll ask a question that I get every day. How much resources do your people need? How dedicated are these resources to answering tweets or answering ideas on IdeaScale? Are they patrolmen? Is it someone in the precinct on Hootsuite? How does it work?
Okay, so what's the resource pool? Our commanding officers are the only ones who operate their accounts. So they'll have their execs or their lieutenants or sergeants from time to time operate them as well. It takes a lot to be out there, to be present, to engage. And so the more that we can create these broadcast accounts, like we did for missing persons, that can insert tweets into the local Twitter stream, it takes that work off the commanding officer. And that's really, really important to do. This can't be more work. This has to be work that saves time. And I think managed well, it can be. Certainly for IdeaScale, that's the case. We're responsible for doing this kind of work. At the moment, our members of the police officers are in the field asking people, so what would you like us to do next? This takes the friction out of that. It's a digital version. IdeaScale takes the friction out of it. It's a digital version, well managed. It creates work, but work that is ours to do, and that we would be having to do otherwise. And to me, that's part of the successful recipe for a rollout of something like this. Is it helps people do the work they're responsible for anyway, and that's what makes IdeaScale very, very, very helpful to us. Yeah. Say again?
So I have a question. First of all, thanks for what you do.
Sure.
My question is probably relevant to a lot of people, and maybe more so, when you have, I'm imagining, folks who didn't get into policing because of their digital skills, do you find a lot of resistance to adoption of these tools, even though they're the right things to do, and if so, how do you deal with that? And in your role, do you have authority to kind of make them do it, or, how do you deal with that?
This gives everyone a taste of success. And the success is what cops show up at work to do, to have, which is serve. They didn't start the day thinking that I'm going to look for, to get in a tussle. They started the day saying, I'm here, I joined the force as a young man or as a young woman to do this kind of work, to help people who could not help themselves. And if we're able to tap into that set of values, that's very powerful stuff. And if we put it in terms of, and by the way, this helps you structure work that we're going to hold you accountable for and always have, but now we're going to put some structure on it. That also paves the way. Our challenge is to get the many communities of New York that are off this platform onto this platform and to engage. We will always find strong partisans for policing in New York. We operate through the precinct community councils, which are the established forums for police and citizens to find each other and to engage around an agenda for action. But this needs to go well beyond those established forums, and that's what our marketing is about. Yeah.
I have a question specifically with IdeaScale. Are they concerned about submitting their email when they go on to this site to leave comments? I mean, do they wish they could just go on?
We haven't asked those who haven't gone on if they haven't gone on because they don't want to share their email address. So it's a good question. I don't have an answer to it. I don't have an answer to it. Yes?
Thank you for sharing, and I was excited to hear that you're thinking about reaching out to Meetup and kind of other places where people might be sharing community concerns. In San Francisco, I don't know if they're as big in New York, but there's like Neighborland and Nextdoor and these kind of community sites where people complain or share things with their neighbors. I'm wondering if those have popped up, and kind of view those as places to collect responses that you want to guide to IdeaScale, or if you're going to use those platforms as well, just how to kind of collect that information.
I had this conversation earlier today. There are firms, some of them that you've mentioned, that run proprietary platforms that look like this. I don't want to bring people on to those platforms to have their data sold to someone else. I won't do it. IdeaScale doesn't do that. And that's very important to us. We're happy to make people rich who do good stuff. That's fine, but not because they're reselling the data of the citizens of New York that we have helped gather. So, but that said, I think what we've seen is that that commercially available platforms stitched together right can do extraordinary work. And they're now so easy to use that if we can bring these into the fray, marry them to the way we do work, there's a lot of power there, power to do good, and that's what we're interested in. Yeah.
I'm just curious, how do you set up the criteria of responding to the votes? Like, you mentioned one subject had 54 votes and you decided to respond to it. So it was like the cutoff at like 53, you didn't do anything.
Oh no, let me correct the impression. 54 means people are just we see that as wow, that's drawing a lot of attention. If there are 3 votes, we're going to pay attention to it. We're not at the point where we're having to like, what's the mother to do? Should we do this one with 3 votes or this one with 53? No, we'll take them all. That's good. I welcome the day where we have to choose. Oh my God! And then we'll come to a choice point where we'll say, well, just because it got 3 votes and this one got 53, that doesn't mean that we do the 53 first. It may be that this 3 is really important. There's something going on here that needs to be attended to, and just because it didn't get all the votes doesn't mean it's not really important for us. So setting these criteria is work ahead. We don't have the answer yet, but it's a good question. Thanks. Yeah.
Question about privacy made me think. You guys have a digital platform for people to anonymously report things. I guess it's a little different than what you're trying to aim for with IdeaScale, but as opposed to calling in like a tip or something, do you have ways like a website or something?
Yeah. Well, so Crime Stoppers is the website that brings tips. They have a phone line. They have a website. Website is very underused. And it turns out that many of the tips come in from people who want to turn someone else in. They had a bad business deal with them. This is not. This is some are, as you might imagine, a witness who saw something and they want to be helpful, and some are not. And so it's a mix. But there are platforms that are available for anonymous reporting, for sure. I'm sorry, could you speak up?
I'm just saying we can also now, per idea, have someone come and say, even though everything's public in general, I on this particular tip want to be anonymous. So in that use case, I mean, because we do that for like, if your boss has disagreed with you on an idea, you can still submit it, right?
Yeah.
But in your use case, it might also be a
Yeah.
worth thinking about.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good deal? All right, thank you very much. Oh, yes, sorry.
No, I was just
Okay,
gonna say,
all right, what?
sorry, now I disrupt you. I was going to say, I was going to say, as a lifelong Mets fan, do you let Yankees fans on?
Thank you very much, yes. Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
Good job.
Yep, thank you.